get the inside picture, but I don't have a microphone. But it's nice. I had to buy the guy's truck too. My truck wouldn't haul it.
What is it, a Ford? You bought a Ford to haul it?
No, watch.
Jeez.
I really went downhill.
Oh, boy.
Elvin loves that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, Elvin loves that one. Oh, boy. Yeah.
No, we uncovered about $5,000 in damage underneath from them not knowing how to flash and do things proper. We got it fixed. That's the main thing, it's fixed.
Yeah.
Money's gone, so can't cry now, I just gotta move on. The wife's gotta pay her bills.
Hey, Mark.
Sunshine?
Yeah.
The meeting hasn't
Yeah.
happened, so these questions could be better answered
What's your
when we had a meeting.
Oh, give me bigger sheet goals today.
Yes, listen, I'm like, I don't know what
See
they're gonna
where
say
we're
about
at.
that. You have to
Do you
wait.
want us to stand up and salute you?
He sure would.
I love it, it's great.
Because I like the shirt.
He had something to say the other night. And we didn't bring it up, so he.
Ron had a couple of times he used to wear when he taught.
No, he doesn't show up, bro.
Have a constitution time and I can't find it.
Oh, no.
I know, what a chance. I'm saying my life right now.
Money, have you gotten any contact from the people that own the little red shack there where you turn on the Grimes Road? You know, it's caved in.
Actually, Tony and I drove by there today, like, I hadn't noticed it
Yeah,
until today.
the rest of it's just a
Yeah.
matter of a good windstorm and
Yeah.
everything, you know.
Yeah, it was the
That's
second
been leaning
one.
for years.
Mess. It's
Yeah.
been leaning on itself, and the
Yeah.
only reason is they were in it.
That's the one that Landine owns, right?
Yes,
Landine or
Landine,
Sean
yeah.
Landine, a different one than.
No one lives there anymore.
Yeah,
No, they
I
lived
just
in
saw
it
it for the
till
first
most
time
of
today.
Yeah. it's a
I heard
mess.
that woman lived in the color, right?
Well, I think somebody had said that to me, but, yeah, she wants to get down there and get a hammer and nails and a pry bar and get at her.
To match it,
Yeah.
it's the gas.
Someone bought it? Did you
Well,
say someone else?
I had heard that too, that the woman in the trailer just above
Oh,
it had it, bought it for some fee, and they signed it over to her prior to leaving the property. But we still have, there's still one on,
well, the mailbox
Grimes
still
Mill
said,
Road too.
yeah, we drove up by there too today.
The blue
Not to,
one. Well, you can't tell what color it is now, it's so grown up around it. Did we have to get a bid on that?
I didn't.
I think that went to bid, but I don't recall getting it.
I paid for it.
They paid?
The previous owner.
Oh, no, that was yours.
That's what my
Yes, I
recollection
found
is,
it.
but I have
That
to,
one's in my lap.
have to pull it up.
Can you get a box of these little?
Darling.
I think we have a box.
Don't you
don't we?
know?
No?
I can probably get more. They all had one tonight.
Yeah, but and then you put it on, it flies.
I know.
Told me that, but said, because she didn't want anybody building down below.
They help keep it clean.
Yeah.
But it's just been, for years, it just leaned on itself, really pulled itself up. And then I think this past winter, when they weren't there, was just enough to give way on that
We're
addition.
gonna be able to.
Somebody was in there, they said they had a great big hole in the,
In the main house, coming from Caribou
Problem, because the
out,
problem with
you would look and see up on that higher main roof.
that one,
I don't know, it's a good sized hole right through the roof. Yeah.
hospital is not trying to.
Oh,
it's too
You know what I
bad.
mean, so
It
it's,
is.
clashes, there you go.
Looking out.
I guess you
I've
couldn't
been,
even.
sometimes they end up
No.
moving there.
How did you get there?
It is more,
Port
Fort Fairfield, I think it is.
Better than having it buried in the,
Did I
in
read?
the cell phone, right?
That's right.
Kids and even full families sit around the table in a restaurant.
But I don't know what was his issue. She
Not
wasn't
speaking a
no
word to each other.
physical.
See my daughter walk in here with her circuit.
Yeah.
My daughter lost hers today for a few hours.
Oh,
That was
she
exciting.
must have been like going
I'm
off
all
to
over,
her.
I'm like, I need that back.
I know.
Thank goodness she found it.
That's like the end of the world.
Well, I can relate, if I lost my phone.
So,
I know, it's really a weird feeling, right?
Then there's
I hit the little button on my
someplace
watch.
down on the grounds in Old Road by Bobby Flores.
My phone phone's my daughter's phone.
Right next to it.
And sees every
43, right next to Dean's driveway. It was on Driscoll.
They said that collapsed in. He's got, water.
I can see everything she does.
You know, maybe we ought to look at that. They have it about kids on
She
it.
knows?
Maybe
Does she know?
something on it.
I had no man told her something when I was in high school.
It's a nice little.
And then I said, okay, you're on your own.
I bought the Dodge, obviously. But, that's what it, books were. It's a 2015. Books were blue, 74.
Is it Bill Diesel?
Yeah.
It'll go forever, especially with the pickup, it's just not working. It's not working with the pickup.
I was looking at the new ones, the loaded, does that got the shifter on the dial? One of the boys, the McCrum boys, Pineland, his company truck is a newer Dodge. Nice interior.
Well, the back rate's been banged up, it's got pushed in on this corner, the tailgate.
Yeah,
window's got push in, it's got spring on the side.
right. Well, no, but I'm just wondering, let's see. Very.
Yeah.
Outside this house up here, and the back's.
Yeah.
About legal stuff.
That's what I never did.
That's where you're at.
Everything is like.
You'll have less than that one.
So what are you gonna do, leave the camper on that, and just use that? and run the
I
camper?
haven't, my truck will fit. I have to have
Won't
the,
fit?
oh, the 8 foot.
Yeah.
So, that's why I had to buy the truck. Wouldn't buy a truck, I had no choice. So,
Thursday, not
So I'll check with.
camper still got 3 year warranty.
I can't get over it.
And that's.
Where did you buy it?
Well, no, I mean, we won't have, I mean,
Appreciation of that, that'll work.
I don't
I mean,
think.
we got it in one spot.
Transferable.
Iron, I saw it too.
I still think
As long as I have like three
So you
people
had
active
that
on trying to move on there, okay, that's
We
what
can
it's
just hold
like.
that first, drop down, and then just, we can talk here.
It's got a generator and everything.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I've been watching on Facebook, these people, couples in with guys, they've been buying buses,
I'm just
old school
thinking like,
buses, some of the smaller buses.
maybe the other side of the
And
river,
Retro
but not down
goes
too far,
into
but I could see the
living
power
spaces.
plant from the
They
other
live in
side of the river. And
Got
then
one
come
in the southern
down
Jim, he's got one of those.
there on the river and then
2016.
the trail that goes up to First
Being
Lodge.
able to keep someone else.
Yes,
So
yes.
I remember how we, because that's one of the things that we're talking about is like the trail access between the power plant, Brown Hills and.
Did he mean or buy it?
Danielle, I know you've told us a million times, but when do we need to have something put on that?
I don't have a date
Oh,
from.
September.
is it in September though?
It's a good model.
Yeah, the end of August
We
is
brought
great,
it up
but if you
and,
can have it by
looked
the very start of September.
Oh,
Cause I need to have it by the time the nomination is due, that, cause it's all wrapped on that day.
That would be a perfect one. Even this one here.
Right. We have to go
This is
through
on a
it.
flat net. Well, I'm on a flat net. Well,
So I'll let you know.
make sure it's not,
Yeah.
and you got all kinds of
I
stuff.
carve out.
Trying to get my.
Do we have to do it for
Yeah, but I hate to see it come back.
Keep all your, you have more creature comforts to bring on. You gotta put anything on it.
I know I tried to in the morning.
I seen one that looked like an old gypsy caravan. Homemade. My God, the inside was, I mean,
Yeah.
of course, you know, it always looks bigger probably than it truly is, but.
Everybody could please turn their microphones on. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Monday and open the meeting, Monday, July 10th, 2023 council meeting. Roll call, all councilors are present. Councilor Morrow is joining us via Zoom. Can you hear us, John?
Yes, I can.
Perfect, thank you. And we also have,
Joe Sally, our real estate assessor's agent.
Who's joining
He's
us?
the one that says iPhone.
Okay.
and he is, he can hear us too.
Can you hear us, Joe?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
we can hear you.
Perfect, absolutely
Okay.
perfect. Thank you for
Perfect.
joining us.
Thank you.
We got the roll call through, and invocation and inspirational thought. If everybody could please join me in being the attitude of prayer. We pray for our country at all times, that all citizens are safe, healthy, and happy. We pray for wisdom for all those who guide and govern. Help this government body in every situation to know and to do the things that are right and just, with soundness of judgment in making vital decisions. We pray for the peacemakers, that the holy life-giving spirit may ever dwell in their hearts, and the barriers of fear, suspicion, and hatred may fall. This we pray to the Holy Father. Amen.
Amen.
If everybody please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so next we have the public forum. Danielle, do you have anything from an email land from us? Is anybody from the audience to address council regarding public forum? Okay, seeing no public forum, this time we will go to new business, ordinances, and resolution. We have resolution 70123 establishing the 2023 property tax rates and related deadlines, and I'm going to go ahead and let Penny update us on this.
So we do have our real estate assessor, Joe, on the line. If you have any, if you want him to kind of walk through the changes that were made since we committed in 2022. Joe, if you're there, can you kind of walk us through what's been happening in the real estate market in Caribou and the changes that were made this year?
Yes, I can. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm currently at a baseball game, so if you hear some unexplained noises in the background, I apologize. I wanted to start by saying that I was given the directive to make some adjustments to the local property tax assessments. I had a pretty good idea of what was happening in the market, but it's a fairly extensive and long process to go through that. It's something where you think you have an idea, and you try it out. You see, you start at your last year's valuations as a base model, and then you tinker with things and see if your results are better. So going into this, I had what I felt like was a fairly decent idea of what had been happening in the market. And so I went in, I adjusted the land values up 15%, and that basically took us up to a place on, the state does not measure land-only sales, they only measure developed parcel sales, but bringing the land up 15% put us in a place where I believe we're at 91%, and I didn't feel like that was too aggressive. It also coincided, I ended up going sort of around the wagon a few times with it, but also ended up pairing very well with the adjustments to the building values that I've settled on as of right now. So I started there, and my beginning point was the most recent state valuation that Maine Revenue Services does each year. I requested back in just after the new year that they get the City of Caribou's state valuation done as soon as possible, because I wanted to see where our data was. And I also, if we were going to go through the steps to make mass adjustments, I was really hoping that it would be good for a couple of years. So Maine Revenue did do their work, and when we received the result of it back, it had the City of Caribou at 72%, with a quality rating or coefficient of dispersion of 25. And so what that means is that on average, the tax assessments in the City of Caribou are 72% of what property is selling for. And that was during the July of 2021 through the end of June 2022 time period. Statutorily, the city needs to be between 70 and 110%. So we're dangerously close, and realistically, if this adjustment wasn't made, we would probably, or most certainly, dip below the 70% threshold. Additionally, statute guides us that our coefficient of dispersion, or our equity in assessments, should not be greater than 20, and the state had us at 25. None of this was overly surprising to me, given the market conditions that we've seen, really not just in Caribou, but statewide over the last couple of years. And the higher than desired quality rating wasn't overly surprising to me either. The last revaluation was back committed in 2012. A lot of the work was done in 2010 and 11. So it's been a period of time since, a lot of these properties were looked at. So that was the beginning point. And I went in, like I said, I ended up going back to the land going up 15%. All buildings, my starting point went up 23%, all building values. And then I started to break things down by ages, quality of construction, and condition of that. And what the data told me is that the poorer quality homes had not increased in value at near the same rate that the nicer quality homes had. And the homes that are in better condition, which again, I guess that's not really surprising. So I made some further adjustments to the nicer graded homes, and I ended up having to knock back. So there was the initial 23% bump in the building value, and I ended up having to knock that back a little bit for the lower grade properties. So that's, in a nutshell, what I did. Using the exact same data set that the state used, we went from a 72% ratio up to 102%, but our quality went from 25 to 22. I wasn't really happy with that, so I fished through, I believe it was 92 sales, while it was an improvement, I thought it was too aggressive. And in looking through that data, there were some sales data in there that probably shouldn't have been. While it turned out to be advantageous to the city of Caribou in terms of state valuation, there were some estate type sales and non-arm's length sales. And when I rooted those out, I felt like the true ratio really went from 66 to 95, and I was very comfortable at 95. And the coefficient of dispersion landed at 16. And when you are 11 years off of a reval, I was very pleased with that. So that's in a nutshell what I did. And if you guys aren't too tired of listening to me talk, I just wanted to give a short background on why this adjustment, I felt like it was necessary. Is that okay if I
Yeah, go ahead,
do
Joe.
that?
Go ahead, Joe, please.
I was glad that I was asked to do this because each year that 72% figure that the state came up with, that number, the following year, we're allowed to certify 10% beyond that. So, 72 times 0.1 is going to give you another 7.2, and you can add that to 72, gets you to 79.2. What that means is each year we have to certify with the state what percentage our developed properties are, and we have to make adjustments to everything. So the folks receiving homestead exemptions, that $25,000 exemption needs to get factored by that ratio. So if you're at 80%, you're only going to get 80% of the 25,000. Same thing for the veterans exemption. Properties that are enrolled in tree growth have to be adjusted by that percentage. And also the taxable personal property and the exempt personal property under the business equipment tax exemption program, everything needs to be adjusted. So you really, your taxpayers lose the benefit of the full amount of those programs. And further, being at 72%, we were just really 2 points away from being out of statutory guidelines. So that's why I think that the project is needed.
Is that all? Excuse me, is that all you have for us, Joe?
Yes, I certainly welcome any questions that you might have.
Does anybody on the council have any questions for Joe? Thank you.
I might have questions later as we go through the package, but none at this time.
Mark, go ahead.
Thank you very much, sir, for your presentation. I'd like to say that you have a pretty good microphone because I can really understand what you're saying from some of the other Zoom in microphones we've had. But so, is this a process that we're going to do or should be done every year?
No, it doesn't need to be done each year. You could do that each year, but it's really real estate market dependent. And Caribou certainly is not alone in being in this position. It's happening everywhere across the state, where the market has just been, rapidly appreciating, and values have continually risen which means that, you know, if you don't do anything to your local assessments, your sales ratio is gonna drop. And as a matter of fact, I think Caribou's actually done fairly well to go 11 years, and with the exception of last year, we weren't able to certify at 100, I believe. We were at 95, is that correct, Penny?
That is correct.
But, you know, to basically go 10 years, being able to certify at 100 was pretty good. But you know, there are communities out there that tinker with things each year. Generally speaking, I don't think that we need to do that. But I think we needed to get ourselves into a place where we could certify at 100%, so that your veterans and homestead recipients are receiving the full benefit, and we're reaping the full benefit of the state reimbursements for those programs.
I am familiar with another state, and they actually do it every year. And your property tax value actually goes up and down every year. I mean, sometimes it's not by much. And the only reason I ask that is because it takes out the big sting if you only do it once every 10 years, if you do it gradually over time. So that's why I brought that subject up.
Sure.
This is basically state mandated, isn't it? I mean, if we want to take the full benefit, like you said, of the homestead exemptions and all the exemptions, then you pretty well follow the guidelines that the state puts forward, right?
Yes, I mean, for us to reap the full benefit, this project was necessary. Without it, I believe that we were only going to be able to certify at 88, if my memory serves me correct.
Yeah.
And that was this year. Next year, we would have been able to only certify at 79% because they allow us the 10% on top of the 72. So it was something that was going to need to be done at some point. And seeing where the most recent state valuation came out, you know, being dangerously close to that 70% threshold, it really feels like this is the best time to do it.
So for us to get the full benefit, this council would be wise to follow the formula that the state has given us to follow. And that's fine. And people can say that this is unfair, people can say it's fair, and yes, it's equitable, but if we want the full benefit of the state, then we should make sure we follow the plan. And this is just a personal issue, it's not a question, I guess, I just want to make this statement. You have different classes in here. You mentioned a few of the criteria for them. Poor quality, good quality, I get it. But there's one class that's not in here, and it's the class of, okay, there's a group of people that wanted to sell their house. And I'm being compared because I don't want to sell my house. I want to live in my house until I die. I want to pass my house on. I have no interest in selling my house. If I sold it, where would I live? And you're comparing me with people who want to sell. And for people to say, well, just sell your house. It's not conducive. This system that the state has set up is not conducive, how do I say this, to what I think is fair. And fair is a big word here. It's more than 4 letters or word. We are following the state guidelines here on how to do this. And I can say how unfair it is until I'm blue in the face. It isn't going to make any difference. We're still going to follow it. So, you know, some people are going to be upset because they have no intention of selling their houses. And they're just trying to stay in them. So, well, thank you for your work, I appreciate it, I understand it, I get it. I get what Penny sent us over the internet, and I get what you said tonight. And I can't complain, there's no complaining here, as long as I understand I'm following the state rules. These are not my rules. Okay?
One thing I wanted to say, while I can tell you, you know, on a personal level, I'm certainly in favor of the city of Caribou, you know, reaping, and its taxpayers reaping all of the benefit that they can in terms of reimbursement. I will say that from the assessing perspective, to do this year is difficult because you know, it's difficult anytime you're moving valuations because people get upset. You know, they don't always look at their value, they look at the bottom line amount of dollars that are coming out of their pocket. With what I understand to be a significant budget increase, this is really like a perfect storm in my world because it sort of compounds things. So there's no doubt if this were to move forward that there are going to be some folks that are upset, and that's something that I'm going to have to deal with. You know, on an individual basis, you know, look at their cases, but you know, it would probably be advantageous if budget-wise, we weren't looking at such a substantial increase, but you know, but budgets are what budgets are these days. Everything costs more. So I completely get it, but I do think that it makes the process of making mass adjustments more difficult for sure.
I've been able to separate the increase of the budget subject and bringing this valuation up to what the state says should be par. So I can separate the two. And right now we're talking about the valuation part. So someone is upset when they get their tax bill. Do they have, I think you just alluded to it, but this is the first I've heard of it. Are you planning on having meetings with people that might be upset so that you can have one-on-one meetings? Is that what you just said?
Yeah,
Is that part of your process?
I'm sorry?
Is that part of your process to meet with individuals after this takes place?
Well, I meet with taxpayers from Caribou pretty much every week, pretty much year-round. People have always got questions and concerns, and it's going to be no different. I don't have, you know, a block of days set aside, but normally people call and email. We discuss things, and then I will save up a bunch of work, and I will come up and if people want to meet with me, we'll set aside a time to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a list of suggestions in front of us. What are the wishes of council?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to set the 2023 tax rate at .01855.
Second.
Discussion by council on the current motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like for
Go ahead.
If someone is upset with the valuation and the understanding of mixing okay, now the two subjects have to come together because we are having an increase in the budget. we are doing this, I would hope that, maybe I'm wrong, but maybe someone's gonna call and say, hey man, what's going on? That the city have a plan to connect to this guy. I didn't mean that, to this gentleman, and figure out a plan of action so that people, it could be even 2 or 3 people sitting there, I don't know, whatever the plan is.
Right.
Instead
I
of
put
having
on my-
employees get a phone call saying, hey, how do I direct them here? Say,
I actually wrote that down, so.
I just wanna,
Yeah.
I just wanna say that.
Yeah.
I just wanna, okay, that's it. I'll go with that.
Well, when we had the revaluation, remember, we had.
We did.
Yes.
We did, but no one's talked about a plan yet.
Right, yeah.
When this happens.
Mhm.
And the people of Caribou should know that we're spending about a little more than 3 mils more than we did last year on our expense budget.
Correct.
Now the two come together. So even though we might be gaining 25% in reductions, or whatever that average was, we're not getting the whole benefit of it. So at the last reval we did in 2010, the budgets were the same. So everyone got the full benefit of their valuation. Everyone paid the same taxes as they did the year before. So this is not the way it's working this year. And the two are confusing. I'd just like to make a statement. I think a neighboring community went through the same thing last year. It's part of the system. Everyone thought their taxes were going to go down because the headlines read mill rate. And some of the nicer homes got snagged pretty heavy. And there was a big uproar because nobody knew about it at the time. I mean, it was kind of
Right.
going through here. So I just think it was nice that we had this gentleman come out, explain it. It's going to be very confusing, I think. Maybe not, but I think.
So, Mr. Mayor, I don't have any opposition to the setting of the mill rate as proposed here. But I do have some concerns on the valuation as it stands today. You know, that mill rate is based on, as was pointed out, our budget and our anticipated revenues and valuations. Well, this readjustment, I think, has, it's still quite spread widely, you know, in terms of like the percent tax increase for our citizens. So I think we figured it would be about 10% on average. But that average, you've got to be careful about the average, because that average spreads anywhere from a negative value to up to 50%. And when I plotted out all of Joe's data on a graph, it's very clear to me that there's a very focused cluster of homes that are going to experience tax increases anywhere from 0 to 50%. So that 10% number is very deceiving, and you will get a lot of reaction from the public, especially those ones that come in at 100% tax increase, 150% tax increase. It's in the data, it's there, and you're going to hear those. So I think we need a little bit more work on our valuation process to try to narrow that spread so that it's more equitable across the different classes of homes.
Mr. Bagley, Councilor Bagley, I am one of the recipients that gets hit hard. And just, anyone can dig up look at my home. Look what's going to happen to it. I have no desire to sell my home. I can't sell my home. It's part of the deal. Now, before we vote on this, I'd like to ask you, because this thing called the property tax stabilization, that's another variable that's going to come in, isn't it? We've got valuations of the planning, we've got increase in the budget, now we have this coming in. Can you explain that? And that's gonna be part, because some people might be at rest if they figure out what this means.
Right, and in fact, I had this conversation actually with my husband today, because he said, how much are my taxes gonna go up this year because of the mill rate? And I said, well, dear, because you're over 65 and you applied for stabilization, yours won't go up at all. So we have 491, I had put that in the packet, there's 491 taxpayers that had applied for stabilization. Now, unfortunately, this is a one-year program, and we just actually found that out in the last week or so, that the legislature has changed that.
Let me guess, it's a government program.
You got it, okay?
Oh, if it wasn't funny. Go ahead.
So anyway, so what is going to happen with that, and we actually have had a lot of people call about, do I have to reapply? When I applied, was it for this year? Because the deadline was December 1, and we never have December 1 for a deadline for anything, it's always April 1. So we have assured people that we have it in our Trio, the computer assisted mass appraisal software. So actually, you know what, I can pull it up. I don't know, well, I can tell you, I know this account has one. So on here, Trio actually added these fields last year. So if this box is checked, the taxes are limited to the tax amount in the box. So the 491 people who applied for that, if their taxes are lower based on valuation, they'll pay the lower amount. If it's the higher amount, we will be sending the state of Maine a bill for the difference between what we would have billed everyone and what their stabilized amount was for these 491 people. So there are some people that won't get an increase, even though you would think that they would based on the valuation increase.
So when these people receive their tax bill, is that all stated on the bill?
Okay, so I hope so. We haven't seen what the bills are gonna look like, because it's gonna calculate them, but it should have, okay, so in our bills, if you look at our tax bills from years gone by, there is, there's a place that says what the total amount is, and then it will say how much is due. So again, if you make payments on your bill, then the amount due is going to be less than what your amount that you were assessed was. So, for example, again, I have to pull up the only one that I know, and you can see that if I can, well, my computer, I'm having a little bit of issue here, but, so this is what our tax bills look like. So if we go down to, nobody watch the screen because it's going to make you dizzy. So again, because this is the only bill that I know for sure has a prepayment, we will go to my husband's house, and you can see what it looks like if you have made prepayments.
Suppose you did, okay, that's a.
Okay, well, here's one. So this one has, see where we have the net assessment here,
Correct.
and then the total tax.
Okay.
But because these people have made payments, their total bill is this 218, amount due 218. So it doesn't have in here that their total tax that they owe is the amount that was assessed. Now, my hope is when I get these bills back, so what I do, because even last year when I wasn't the assessor, I was the manager, I still handled putting the tax bills out. And So I get a run of bills when we send everything out to be outsourced. And so I check things like this, because there was a year, I think it was 2011, that these didn't print right, and everyone had their total tax was that they still owed it. So we had to go back and do those. So when we send everything to be outsourced, when I get that run of bills back, this is one of the things I'm going to be checking, because I can print a report of the 491 people. So I'll be able to check from there to make sure that the bills are printing correctly, so that when someone who has a stabilization amount, and again, we haven't seen what the new bills will look like, but it may have somewhere another line in here that talks about like
Fair enough.
stabilization.
Fair enough. Someone's working on
Yeah, yeah,
it. Very important for me.
yeah,
Let's not send out any bills until we understand how it
right,
works.
yeah, yeah,
Okay?
Right.
Because there's 491 people
mhm,
that won't be mad.
right, yeah, that's right.
Because all they're gonna do is go to the bottom line.
That's right. Yeah,
Correct.
they're gonna-
How
they're gonna
much
look
is
at-
due?
Right, this total due.
That's all. And there's 491 people.
Mhm.
Now, if it's just a one-year program, you might get them next year.
Yes, yeah.
But 1 year at a time.
Yeah, well, there's been a talk on the assessing listserv that we probably should be putting a letter in with our bills, because people are gonna be right up in arms about this one-year program, and they're not gonna understand it, so.
We've done our job,
mhm,
explaining this year, this is how it works.
mhm.
There's no promises in government.
No.
So,
I
you
mean,
know, let's
fair,
just take
it's
what's,
fair.
what's on the bill, let's
Mhm.
make sure it's just crystal clear.
Yeah, and they have
In
been,
there.
they've been sending that out on the assessing listserv for everyone to make sure that they get a big enough run of their bills that they can check it.
Check mine, will ya?
Yes, yes, I'll make sure, I'll send them your account number.
Thank you.
Well, by the time that the average taxpayer gets their tax bill, isn't it too late for them to dispute it?
No.
It is
So
not?
we have an
It commits on a
abatement.
certain date, right?
What's that?
I said it commits on a certain date. It's already committed by the time you send it out. So their only recourse is to put in for an abatement, which is never granted.
It isn't, I wouldn't say that things aren't never granted. I mean, we do issue abatements if we're wrong. You know, if someone comes in and says.
But now the taxpayer is arguing the assessed value.
Correct.
Why is this?
Yeah.
That could take a while.
Well, we always have a meeting of the Board of Assessors before interest starts, so that if anyone has an issue with their property valuation and wants to have an abatement heard by the Board of Assessors, then that decision will be made before interest starts, so they don't have to worry about trying to pay, you know, the amount. If they don't
Yeah.
have it.
Is it possible to get it even earlier in the process, to give taxpayers a pre-notification, especially if their tax bills are going to go up substantially, that they have time to come in and dispute that and work it out before it gets committed and they're forced into an abatement procedure?
Well, the year that we had the full revaluation, they did that. So they mailed out notices to everyone of what their new value was and what the estimated tax rate was.
Before it committed?
Before they had commitment.
I would love to see that in this case, because these new valuations are all over the map. And some people are going to really get surprised.
So if we did that, that would mean you can't commit today, because so then that, if you want to have, if you want people to have an opportunity to dispute the methodology or dispute that the information that we have is correct. So if someone, so say we have that someone's home is in good condition because from the outside, it looks like it's still in good condition, and maybe the last time we visited the house 5 years ago, it was in good condition, but maybe there's something going on we don't know. And the assessor visits the home and finds out, okay, well, it isn't in good condition, it's in fair condition or poor condition. Then, in that case, if you're going to give everyone the chance before you commit, that means your valuation will change.
And you
So
have
that
to
means-
hold it, yeah.
So you can't
Yeah.
commit today. That's, I mean, you don't commit the same day you set the mill rate, because we have paperwork, you know, that has to be done before we can actually commit the taxes to the collector to collect.
I think what you're most likely to see is people coming in with a $100,000 home and looking at similar properties. They were reassessed or readjusted and they get a 100% increase. And their neighbor got a 20% decrease. How do you even defend that?
Well, you would have to look at the same.
Very hard.
Could I speak?
Yeah,
Penny,
yeah,
could
go
I
right
speak
ahead.
on it?
Yeah, go right ahead, Joe.
I understand that there is a shift in tax burden, but I would like to point out that, number one, we've improved the ratio to a place where we're at 95% of market value, which was the primary objective
Yep.
of it. And number two, our coefficient of dispersion or quality rating is greatly improved. So the notion that the assessments are all over the map, I would actually say that they were maybe all over the map before, and I believe that we've tightened them. I believe the data, using the exact same data set that the state used, shows that we've tightened. We've brought our assessments in line to be more equitable than what they were before.
All true, all true. I'm focused on percent increase in taxes. That's what people is going to get people's attention.
I understand that, and I'm focused solely on value, so I'm only focusing on half of the equation.
And if someone seeks an abatement, it's only on value, because we have, one tax rate for everything, so.
I think I tried to do an abatement once, and it's not an easy process and not easily won. So to say that abatements are, the key to giving somebody an opportunity to dispute, once you're in an abatement procedure, that's not good.
Although the assessor is deemed to be correct unless you have.
You've got to have compelling evidence to the contrary, and how many times does that actually happen? So anyway, those are my concerns.
I mean, what we did the last time, and I've had on my list to work on this time, is to print out the sales so people can look at like a one-page property record card about the sales. We did that with the revaluation so that people could say, okay, well, that house is kind of like my house. And, oh, that house sold for that? Wow. I guess, we had a lot of that with the revaluation. People just weren't, there's more data available now than there was in 2012. I mean, people can go on and get estimates of their home's values from different automated value model software. It's everywhere. You don't really know what they use for their methodology for that. I mean, in assessing, we would call that like black box. They don't say how they come up with the values, like Joe has explained today, how he came up with his model. You don't get that with AVMs, but they're available, and things like that weren't available in 2012. We didn't even have our transfer tax declarations online in 2012, but people can go in and take a look at what other properties are selling much easier now. Is there anything else you wanted to say, Joe? Sorry.
Okay.
No, I feel pretty good. I'm certainly open to answering questions if anyone has them.
Motion on the floor, roll call vote, Bagley,
Aye.
Boma,
Aye.
Gahn,
No.
Morrow,
Aye.
Terrio,
Aye.
Willie,
Aye.
aye. Motion carries to set the mill rate at .01855. Motion carries. I just want to follow suit though, even though we've reduced the mill rate, to follow along with Mark's comment. That doesn't mean everybody's bill is going to go down. I think we've clarified that very well this evening. We have some other things on the issue. Items 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are sit to 6. no, actually to 7, 2 to 7. We could move those in a one slate, whatever the council would like to do, we can do individually, but I don't see a reason.
I would make a motion that we move this slate on items 2 through 7.
Second?
Motion to move the items 2 through 7, which sets our date of commitment, the date of the property taxes payable, interest, and and the revenue budget shall be as amended as follows. Discussion.
Yeah, question on item 5. Didn't we used to charge 4%? Did it move to 8% this
So,
past year?
Yeah, you'll see there, what we typically do is set it at the state maximum. And last year, the state maximum was 4%.
And it doubled?
2023, the state maximum is 8%.
Good eye, I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
That's a,
And the second question I had on 7, the revenue budget, the homestead exemption, the amended budget, 703,611. I'm trying to understand why that's a lower number than before if the reimbursement rate went from 73% to 6%.
It's because the mill rate dropped by 5. So, like,
So that's the
you have a
trade-off.
homestead exemption
Okay.
of, 25,000
Got it.
times the mill rate times .76.
Yep, that's clear now. Thank you.
other discussion. Bagley?
Aye.
Boma?
Aye.
Gone.
Aye.
Morrow?
Aye.
Terrio?
Aye.
Woolley?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Danielle has all that information for us, and let me get that done. We got reports and discussion by
We
mayor.
still have number 8. You voted on 2 through 7. But number 8 changed the lines in the budget to match.
Oh, where's
Oh, it's on page 3. Oh.
Oh, okay. Yeah, oh, excuse me. Hold on a second here. Where am I at here on this? So we needed to change, so, okay. We do the council entertain a motion.
8. Where, I'm missing 8.
It's on page 3.
Page 3,
The,
it's a little grid.
Yeah, I didn't realize that
I
was
move
in-
that we
There. yeah.
change the revenue lines as stated. Second.
Discussion. Bagley? We're on page 3.
Did you find it?
Yeah, we're on page
Just give me a
3.
minute.
Yep.
This is the same as listed under 7 in the resolution, right?
That's what I thought, but I wasn't sure.
Well, so 7 is about
No.
putting on, we will be putting on receipts that will be closing at 1, the last business day of the year, to run everything. That's what number 7 is. Number 8 is the changes to the revenue.
No.
I think he's looking at the resolution page.
Oh, okay.
That's why.
Yeah, and number 7, we've already approved that. And number 7, the revenue budget shall be amended as follows. So why are we doing it twice? We can if you want.
No,
Do we need it?
I was looking at the memo. I just wanna
Okay,
make
yeah,
sure-
okay, that's what I thought. I
just wanna
just
make
did till I
sure
looked at
the
we
Okay.
follow
Yeah.
that
I
he
thought I
has
was
that.
losing my
Okay,
mind
so,
there. Okay.
So it's already.
So we're
voted.
good.
We're good.
We'll just
Withdraw the motion and
withdraw the motion.
I withdraw the motion.
And and so we'll start with reports and discussion by mayor and council members. We'll start with John. How you doing? Anything to say?
Good.
Good. Dan?
nothing this evening, thank you.
Courtney?
Nothing for me, thanks.
Joan?
Nothing.
Lou?
I'm good, thank you.
Mark? Go ahead.
We set the mill rate, and we're setting valuations, and we're basically asking people to pay more money. And my whole philosophy is, we gotta be better tomorrow than we are today. Caribou has what I consider to be little growth. Aroostook County has a little growth. We're all following the same model. Every town follows the game plan, because if you want state revenue sharing, and if you want all those tax dollars from education, you do what the big boy tells you to do. In our case, the big boy is the state. And one of the few things that we have as a council, other than liquor licenses and taxi cab and all that stuff, is expense. And to me, we just passed a budget that represents the tax and spend philosophy of the last, well, I don't know, since I got involved. Aroostook County is not changing. we're not growing. Every year, the critical mass is being lowered as to what businesses can survive in our area. And something's gotta change. Something's gotta change. I don't know what it is. Thank you.
Okay, so let's go to our next meeting, so it'll be on July 24th and August 28th, and we have no executive session. Time to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second?
Discussion, Bagley?
Aye.
Boma?
Aye.
Ron?
Aye.
Morrow?
Has nothing.
Aye.
Dario?
Aye.
Willie?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Meeting is concluded.